Hi everyone, let's talk about the natural causes of mass movements. So I have an equation here, safety factor. It equals the shear strength over your shear stress. If your safety factor is greater than 1, that means your shear strength is greater than your shear stress, then you have stability. But if your safety factor is less than 1, that means your shear strength is less than your shear stress, you have failure, so you have mass movements. And how can failure occur? How can mass movements occur? It's when your shear strength decreases below your shear stress or your shear stress increases above your shear strength. So what are shear strength and shear stress? Well, shear strength is the internal or are the internal forces that resist forces that cause failure, affected by friction. So the frictional force between your rocks, between your regolith, your soils, how tight that is, your roots, your vegetation that holds your soil, your regolith, and your rocks together, how deep it is as well. And your cement is what holds your rock minerals together, and cohesion between your particles themselves. So clay, for example, is really sticky, so it's high cohesion. Yeah. So what decreases your shear strength? Or you have water saturation. When you get water inside, it kind of puts pressure on your pores and stuff. This increases the distance between each soil particle, which decreases your friction and decreases your cohesion. Vegetation decay. So your vegetation is dying, your roots weaken, and therefore they don't have too much of a binding effect anymore. And also weathering. You can weather away your cement through hydrolysis, hydration, oxidation, any chemical weathering effect. And what this does is it loosens up your particles. Your particles are not held together tightly anymore, and that decreases your shear strength. What about shear stress? Well, shear stress are external forces that cause structural failure. So it's affected by weight, gravity, vibrations, and pressure. Gravity is the most important because it is the force taking your material downwards. Remember, mass movements is the movement of your material of your slopes downslope, and that's influenced by gravity. So weight, you have more weight, then you're more under the influence of gravity, and therefore you have more shear stress. Vibration wise, if you have any vibrations like kind of offsetting any loose material, then that might initiate a mass movement event. Pressure, if you have expansion or anything, that leads to more gravity having an effect on your your masses or your slope, and that may lead to mass movements. So over here, shear stress can be increased by water saturation. So if you have more water, you have more weight. If you ever try to lift a bucket of water, it's really heavy because water is quite heavy. That increases your weight, more under influence of gravity, and you might have mass movements. Your vegetation as well. They do have roots, but they also increases your mass, your weight, and so if your roots, if your vegetation increases your shear strength less than shear stress, so maybe your roots are quite shallow, but your mass is really high, then you have more shear stress and shear strength. Undercutting, so undercutting is removing like the bottom, your base, or your cliff, base of the cliff. This can either happen naturally through rivers, oceans, or rain. So when that's cut off, your top mass aren't that supported anymore, but they're more under the influence of gravity. Earthquakes, they cause vibrations. Winds also kind of vibrations a bit, blowing it, giving it energy. And there's also external forces. Weathering, so this is generally for pressure. So stuff like freeze thaw, hydration, anything that gets water inside expands or expands through heating or expands through freezing or wetting itself. That expands your slope outwards and puts it more under the influence of gravity. So yeah, that sums up for shear strength and shear stress, and therefore the natural causes of mass movements. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you in the next video.